Welcome to Lore of the Ring, where we uncover the hidden roads of Middle-earth and tell the tales that Tolkien never wrote. Before we begin, take a moment to let us know in the comments where you're watching from and what time of day or night this narration has reached you. Darkness, absolute and unbroken, pressing down with the weight of mountains, swallowing sound and light and hope. And then heat, a pulse of warmth that should not exist in these lightless depths, a tremor in the air that speaks of something ancient stirring, something that has waited in silence for an age of the world. Deep beneath the misty mountains, in the endless halls of Khazad-dûm, Moria, the dwarves once called it, before the darkness claimed it. There is fire. Not the honest flame of forge or hearth, but something older, something twisted. A fire that burns without fuel, that casts shadows which seem to move with malevolent purpose, that whispers in a language forgotten by all save the eldest of powers. The Balrog, Durin's bane, a creature of nightmare made flesh, or rather, made flame and shadow, for it is neither living nor dead in any sense that mortal beings understand. We know the story. We have heard it sung and spoken across generations. Gandalf the Grey stood upon the bridge of Khazad-dûm and would not let the creature pass. "You cannot pass," he declared, his voice echoing through the vast darkness. And when the Balrog's whip of fire lashed out, when the bridge crumbled beneath them both, they fell, wizard and demon, locked in battle, tumbling down into an abyss so deep that the sound of their falling seemed to last forever. And we know, too, that Gandalf prevailed. That after days of struggle in the uttermost foundations of stone, after a battle fought on the peak of Zurich-Sigil beneath stars that cared nothing for the conflict below, the wizard emerged victorious. The Balrog was cast down, its fire extinguished, its shadow dispersed. The threat ended. But what if it had not? What if the bridge had fallen differently? What if Gandalf's staff had shattered a moment too soon, or the Balrog's flames had burned a fraction hotter? What if the wizard had fallen alone into darkness, and the creature of fire had turned back, its whip coiling like a serpent, its eyes blazing with triumph rather than rage? Imagine the Fellowship stumbling forward through the darkness beyond the bridge, their hearts hammering, their breath coming in ragged gasps. Behind them, the echo of collapse fades into silence. Gandalf is gone. The Balrog is gone. They have escaped, or so they believe. But in the depths below, something moves. The abyss that should have become a tomb becomes instead a passageway. The fall that should have ended in mutual destruction ends in separation. Gandalf tumbles down into darkness, perhaps to perish, perhaps to survive, but the Balrog does not follow. It catches itself on ancient stone, claws raking through rock, wings of shadow spreading wide to arrest its descent. It hangs there for a moment, suspended between levels of the world, and then it begins to climb. Slowly at first. The stone is treacherous, worn smooth by ages of falling water and the passage of time. But the Balrog is patient. It has waited in darkness for thousands of years. It can wait a little longer. It ascends through chasms that have known no light since the shaping of the world, through halls carved by Durin's folk in the glory days of their kingdom, through tunnels that twist and descend and rise again in patterns that would drive a mortal mind to madness. And as it climbs, it remembers. It remembers the First Age, when it served Morgoth in the Iron Mountains, when the world was young and malleable, and the great powers warred openly for dominion. It remembers the breaking of Angband and the flight into hiding, the long centuries of sleep in the roots of mountains. It remembers the dwarves waking it with their delving, their foolish greed driving them ever deeper. until they broke through into chambers that should have remained sealed until the ending of all things. It remembers fire and screaming. It remembers the taste of fear. And now, in this altered thread of fate, it rises. The Fellowship believes it defeated. The free peoples of Middle-earth, occupied with their wars and councils and desperate struggles against Sauron's growing power, do not know that another threat, older, in some ways more terrible, has escaped the prison of stone and shadow that held it for so long. The Balrog reaches a ledge and pulls itself up with arms of smoke and sinew. Its breath is a furnace wind, its eyes twin points of malevolent intelligence burning in the dark. It stands at its full height, and the shadows around it seem to thicken, to gather close as if in homage or fear. The whip of fire coils and uncoils at its side, and somewhere deep in its throat, a sound builds, not quite a roar, not quite laughter, but something in between. A sound of triumph and hunger. The doors of Moria stand far above, closed now after the Fellowship's desperate flight. But there are other ways out. Tunnels that lead to the surface, passages known only to the dwarves who delved them and to the darkness that has studied every stone of this place for 3,000 years. The Balrog knows them all. It takes a step forward, and where its foot falls, the stone cracks and blackens. Heat radiates from its form, and in the distance, something metallic begins to glow a dull red. Ancient ironwork, forgotten forges, the remnants of a civilization that thought it could master fire. The creature moves through the halls with terrible purpose. It is free. It is hungry. And Middle-earth, occupied with the threat of Sauron, has no idea what walks in the darkness beneath the mountains. Above, the Fellowship presses on, grief-stricken and exhausted, believing they have left the worst behind them. But the Balrog does not forget, and it does not forgive. The wizard may have escaped it, may have fallen beyond its immediate reach, but there is a world above, full of living things, full of cities and forests and all the bright, burning life that it was made to destroy. And so the fire that should have perished found the world still unguarded. To understand what has been unleashed, we must look back, far back, beyond the histories recorded in the Red Book of Westmark, beyond even the ancient days of the First Age, to the music of the Aenir and the shaping of the world itself. In the beginning, before the sun and moon rose in the sky, before the elves woke under starlight or the race of men drew their first breath, there were the Aenir, the holy ones, spirits of great power who sang the world into being under the direction of Iluvatar, the One. Among these were the Maiar, lesser in might than the great valor, but still beings of immense power and knowledge, each with their own nature and purpose. Some were spirits of water, others of growing things. Some loved the stars and the depths of the earth. And some were spirits of fire. The Balrog was once such a being. Its name in the elder days is lost to us, but we know it served Alla the Smith, or perhaps Manwë of the Winds, in the timeless halls before the world took form. It was a creature of flame, yes, but flame as a tool of creation. The fire that shapes metal, that warms homes, that lights the darkness and holds back the cold. But fire is a treacherous element. It serves, but it also consumes. It illuminates, but it also destroys. And when Melkor, who would become Morgoth, the first Dark Lord, fell into rebellion and began to corrupt all he could touch, the spirits of fire were among those most vulnerable to his influence. For what is destruction but creation in reverse? What is burning but transformation taken to its extreme? Morgoth whispered to these spirits of flame. He showed them visions of a world remade, not through the patient shaping of Alle or the careful tending of Yavanna, but through glorious conflagration. He promised them freedom from service, power without limit, the joy of watching all things bow before their heat. And some listened. They fell from their high estate and became something new, something terrible. The elves who witnessed them in the wars of the First Age called them Valorokar, demons of might. In the common tongue of later ages, they were known as Balrogs, creatures of shadow and flame, towering and terrible, wreathed in darkness and crowned with fire. They were Morgoth's most feared servants. When he made war upon the elves, when he assaulted their cities and hunted their kings, the Balrogs were his shock troops, his instruments of terror. They were few in number. Tolkien himself noted that there were never more than 7, and perhaps as few as 3, but each was worth an army. Their whips could shatter stone, their very presence could turn courage to ash. Gondolin fell in part because of Balrogs. Feanor, mightiest of all the Noldor, was driven to his death by them. Countless thousands perished in flame and shadow when these creatures walked to war, but Morgoth was defeated. The host of the Valar came from the west and broke his power, cast down his fortresses, and buried him in the void beyond the circles of the world. And his servants, the Balrogs among them, were hunted and destroyed, or so it was believed. Some fled into the deep places of the earth, into caverns and forgotten tunnels where even the Valar did not pursue them. There they hid, sleeping or dormant, waiting through ages of silence for an opportunity that might never come, until the dwarves, in their endless delving, woke them. The Balrog of Moria was one such survivor. It had slept beneath the mountains for nearly 5,000 years when Durin's folk, in their greed for mithril, delved too deep and too greedily. They broke into a chamber that should have remained sealed, and the ancient fire woke. It slew King Durin the Sixth and his son Nain, and the dwarves fled in terror, abandoning the greatest of all their kingdoms to darkness. For 1,000 years after that, the Balrog dwelt alone in Moria, lord of empty halls and forgotten wealth. Orcs came to inhabit the upper levels, but even they feared to descend too far. The creature was content to lurk, to sleep, to wait. It had outlived kingdoms and would outlive many more. But now, in this alternate thread of history, it has been roused again, not by delving dwarves, but by the Fellowship's passage. It has tasted battle, felt the sting of opposition, and its ancient pride has been kindled into wrath. It will not sleep again. It will not return to passive lurking in the depths. It will hunt. A creature older than any king or kingdom stirs, and its hunger cannot be quelled by mortal steel. The bridge of Khazad-dûm is ancient beyond reckoning, a slender arch of stone spanning a chasm so deep that no light has ever reached its bottom. It was built by Durin's folk in the height of their power, a marvel of engineering and a strategic choke point, narrow enough that enemies could only cross in single file, easily defended by a handful of determined warriors. But the dwarves are long gone, and the bridge now serves a different purpose. It is a barrier, a last desperate obstacle between the Fellowship and the pursuing darkness. Gandalf stands alone upon it, staff in one hand, sword in the other, his gray robes whipping in the furnace wind that precedes the Balrog's approach. Behind him, the hobbits and the others have reached the far side. Aragorn's voice calls out, urging the wizard to follow, but Gandalf does not move. He cannot. If he flees, the creature will follow, will catch them in the tunnels beyond, will burn them all to ash. So he stands. The Balrog advances, each step a deliberate challenge. It is massive, far larger than the wizard, its form wreathed in flame and shadow that seems to shift and coil with a life of its own. Its eyes are pits of molten fury, fixed on Gandalf with an intensity that would shatter lesser wills. The whip of fire drags along the stone, leaving glowing scars in its wake. "You cannot pass," Gandalf declares, his voice amplified by power, echoing through the vast chamber. "I am a servant of the secret fire, wielder of the flame of Anor. You cannot pass. The dark fire will not avail you, flame of Udun." It is a challenge and a declaration, an assertion of authority that reaches back to the foundations of the world. Gandalf is also a Maya, a spirit of the same order as the Balrog itself, though he wears flesh and has been diminished by that incarnation. But he bears the authority of the Valor, sent to Middle-earth explicitly to oppose the Shadow. And the Balrog, for all its power, is a rebel and a servant of the void. The creature roars, a sound like mountains splitting, like forges exploding, and raises its blade, a sword of flame that casts wild, leaping shadows across the chamber. Gandalf strikes the bridge with his staff. "You cannot pass." The Balrog steps onto the bridge. The stone groans under its weight. Cracks spider outward from where its feet touch the ancient arch. Heat shimmers in the air, distorting vision, making it hard to tell where flame ends and shadow begins. This is the moment. This is the hinge upon which fate turns. In the history we know, Gandalf's staff shatters the bridge. The Balrog plunges into the abyss, but its whip lashes out at the last instant, coiling around the wizard's ankle, dragging him down as well. They fall together, locked in enmity, beginning a battle that will rage for days through the uttermost deeps and heights of the mountain. But what if the strike misses? What if the stone, weakened by the Balrog's heat, gives way too soon, crumbling not where Gandalf intends but behind him? What if the wizard's exhaustion, for he has led the Fellowship through days of flight and danger with little rest and constant vigilance, causes his timing to falter by just a heartbeat? The bridge collapses, but Gandalf is already moving backward, stumbling onto solid ground. He turns, sees the shocked faces of his companions, and then a terrible realization dawns. He looks back. The Balrog has not fallen. It has leapt or flown or been carried by the shadows that cling to it like living things. It hangs in the air above the chasm, wings of darkness spread wide. Whether those wings are substance or merely shadow is a question scholars have debated. But in this moment, it does not matter. They serve their purpose. The creature lands on the far side of the chasm, where the Fellowship had stood moments before. It crouches there, immense and terrible, its whip coiling and uncoiling as it regards the fleeing figures. Gandalf's spell has blocked the bridge, yes, but the bridge is not the only path. There are tunnels, stairs, passages known to the creature from its long habitation of these halls. And now the Balrog has a choice. It could pursue the Fellowship immediately, chase them through the dark until exhaustion or error gives it the opportunity to strike. But the creature is old and cunning. It knows that the wizard will not flee far, that he will stand and fight if pressed. And in such a confrontation, the outcome is uncertain. Gandalf has already proven his power, and even a Balrog can be wounded, perhaps even destroyed by a determined Maya. Better to let them go. Better to consolidate its freedom, to explore the mountain, to plan. The Balrog turns away from the broken bridge. It descends back into the depths of Moria, not in retreat but in deliberation. It has no need to hurry. The world above has waited for thousands of years. It can wait a little longer. The Fellowship, unaware of how narrowly they have escaped not death but something worse, pursuit by an unchained terror, stumbles out into the sunlight of Dimril Dale. They mourn Gandalf, whom they believe lost, though in this telling he survives the fall and will eventually rejoin them. But they do not know that behind them, in the darkness they have left, something ancient and pitiless has claimed its freedom. The bridge collapses, the echo fades, and yet a shadow walks free beneath the mountains. Khazad-dûm was once a wonder of the world, a kingdom of stone and light carved from the living bones of the misty mountains. The dwarves who built it, Durin's folk, the Longbeards, were masters of their craft, and they poured their skill and devotion into every hall, every pillar, every archway. The ceilings soared so high they were lost in shadow, even when lit by 1,000 lamps. The pillars were carved with intricate patterns that told the history of their people, each line and curve a word in a language of stone. There were forges that burned day and night, producing weapons and tools of such quality that elves and men traveled from distant lands to trade for them. There were mines that delved deep into the mountain's heart, extracting not only iron and copper, but also mithril, that precious silver metal lighter than silk, harder than steel, beloved above all other substances by the dwarves. And there were gardens. Yes, gardens, though dwarves are not often thought of as gardeners. But they coaxed life from the stone, creating chambers where underground streams fed moss and mushrooms, where carefully cultivated lichens glowed with soft bioluminescence, providing a gentle, living light that never flickered or failed. It was a place of beauty and grandeur, a testament to what could be achieved when skill, determination, and vision combined. All of that is gone now. When the Balrog woke, the dwarves fled. They had no choice. What are axes and armor against a creature of primordial fire? They abandoned their homes, their forges, their treasures. They left food on tables, tools in workshops, books open to pages they would never finish reading. The kingdom emptied in a matter of days, and Moria became a tomb. Orcs moved in later, drawn by the darkness and the promise of shelter from the sun. They nested in the upper levels, fighting among themselves, occasionally raiding the lands beyond the mountains. But even they did not descend too deep. Even they sensed that something dwelt below, something that was best left alone. And so the halls remained empty. Dust gathered on treasures that would have made kings weep with envy. The forges grew cold. The streams still flowed, but the gardens died, the moss withering in the absence of tending hands. Silence claimed the kingdom, silence and darkness, and the slow, patient decay of all things left untended. But now the Balrog moves through these halls again, and its presence changes everything. Where it walks, the stone grows warm. Heat radiates from its form, seeping into the walls, the floors, the ancient pillars. Metal that has been cold for centuries begins to glow, first a dull red, then brighter, until iron bands and bronze fittings drip molten tears onto the stone below. The air shimmers with thermals, and dust rises in swirling patterns, stirred by currents that have no natural source. The creature does not move aimlessly. It is exploring, reacquainting itself with the domain it has claimed. It descends to the deepest levels, to places where even the dwarves rarely went, where the natural caverns merge with worked stone, and the boundary between the mountain's original form and the kingdom carved within it becomes uncertain. Here, in these uttermost depths, there are signs of the ancient world, veins of crystal that gleam with their own inner light, pools of water so still and clear they seem like windows into nothingness, and heat, the natural heat of the earth's heart, rising from below, a warmth that has nothing to do with the sun or any surface fire. The Balrog settles in one such place, a vast cavern whose ceiling is lost in darkness above. There is a lake here, fed by underground springs, and the water steams where it touches the air. The creature stands at the water's edge, and the surface begins to roil and bubble, heated by its mere proximity. This will be its lair, its fortress. From here, it will plan its emergence into the world above. But first, it must consolidate its power. The orcs in the upper levels are a resource, creatures of shadow and malice, easily bent to the will of a stronger darkness. The Balrog sends forth its influence, a pulse of heat and terror that travels through the stone like a seismic wave. The orcs feel it, and they know something has changed. The thing in the deep is no longer dormant. It is awake, and it is watching. Some flee immediately, scrambling toward the exits in blind panic. But others, the stronger and more cunning, sense opportunity. Power is moving in Moria, and if they can ally with it, if they can serve it, they too might share in that power. They descend. The journey takes days. The tunnels are treacherous, filled with traps laid by the dwarves and never disarmed, with chasms that must be climbed or circumvented, with passages that twist back on themselves in maddening patterns. But the orcs persist, driven by equal parts fear and ambition. When they finally reach the Balrog's lair, they prostrate themselves, chittering and groveling in their harsh tongue. The creature regards them with eyes of fire, and for a long moment it does not move. The orcs press their faces to the stone, waiting, scarcely daring to breathe. Then the Balrog speaks. Its voice is not words, not in any conventional sense. It is a vibration, a sound that bypasses the ears and resonates directly in the bones, in the skull, in the deep animal parts of the brain that remember only fear and survival. The orcs hear it and they understand. They are claimed. They will serve. And in return, they will be led to plunder and slaughter such as they have never known. The Balrog is not content to remain hidden. It is a creature of the First Age, a warrior spirit that fought in the wars of the valor. It does not cower or hide. It will emerge, and when it does, it will bring fire and ruin to all who stand before it. But first, it must prepare. It must gather its strength, organize its forces, and choose its path. The mountain groans, as if mourning a doom no one yet sees, and the Balrog claims the darkness as its own. In the halls above, scattered groups of orcs begin to move with new purpose. They gather weapons, salvage armor from the bones of the dwarves who died here, and scout the tunnels leading to the surface. They are no longer aimless scavengers, but soldiers, organized and directed by a will far greater than their own. And in the deepest places, where the heat is greatest and the stone itself begins to glow, the Balrog forges its plans. It remembers the world above, the forests and rivers, the cities of elves and men, the mountains and plains that stretch away in all directions. It remembers how they burn. Soon, it will remind the world as well. There are many exits from Moria, though most are hidden or forgotten. The great doors at the western end, the doors of Durin, were sealed by the dwarves when they fled and have remained closed for centuries. The eastern gates, through which the Fellowship emerged in the histories we know, are still watched by orcs and other creatures loyal to the darkness. But there are other ways. Tunnels that lead to isolated valleys, passages that emerge in hidden clefts in the mountainside, ancient stairways that wind up through the stone to exit in places far from any traveled road. The Balrog knows them all. It chooses its path with care, not the obvious routes, where its emergence might be immediately detected and reported. Not the high passes, where the sun is bright and open sky presses down, but a middle way, a tunnel that opens into a forested valley on the eastern slopes of the Misty Mountains, a place of shadows and mist where even in daylight, the sun's rays are filtered through layers of leaves and fog. The creature emerges at dusk, when the boundary between day and night is uncertain. It stands at the tunnel's mouth, a shape of darkness and flame, and for a moment it simply exists, drinking in the open air, feeling the wind against its form for the first time in centuries. Behind it, a column of orcs follows, hundreds of the creatures armed and eager. They spill out of the tunnel like a dark tide, spreading into the forest, and the Balrog does not need to command them. They know what to do. They have been made for this. The forest begins to burn, not all at once. The Balrog does not simply unleash flame in all directions. That would be wasteful, purposeless. Instead, it moves deliberately, choosing targets. A massive oak, ancient and gnarled, its roots deep in the earth. The Balrog touches it, and the bark blackens, smokes, then erupts in flame that races up the trunk and into the canopy above. A stream, its water clear and cold. The creature wades through it, and the water boils, fish floating belly up in water too hot to sustain life. A boulder, moss-covered and half-buried in soil. The Balrog places a hand upon it, and the stone cracks, splits, glows red from within as if the mountain's heat has been concentrated into that one spot. The orcs fan out, laughing and howling, setting fires of their own with torches, slaughtering any living thing they encounter. There are deer in this forest, squirrels and birds, and somewhere deeper in the valley, a small settlement of woodsmen, hunters and trappers who live far from the great cities, who have chosen solitude over society. They die before they understand what is happening. The Balrog does not hurry. It moves through the valley like a predator, not hunting for sport but claiming territory. Every step leaves a mark: scorched earth, smoking vegetation, stone cracked by heat. And as it moves, it grows stronger or perhaps more focused. The constraints of the mountain, the weight of stone above, had limited it in ways it had not fully realized. But here, under open sky, with the wind feeding its flames and space to fully manifest its power, it feels something like joy. By morning, the valley is a ruin. The forest is gone, reduced to ash and skeletal trunks still glowing with embers. The stream has run dry, its course choked with debris and dead fish. The settlement is a memory, only charred foundations remaining to mark where it once stood. And the Balrog moves on. It travels eastward, following the mountain's edge, staying to the wilder lands where settlements are few and the chance of early discovery is low. But it does not hide. It cannot hide, not truly. Smoke rises behind it in a dark column visible for miles. The glow of flames can be seen even in daylight, and at night, it seems as if a second sun has risen in the east, a red, angry sun that brings not life but destruction. Word begins to spread. A shepherd tending his flocks in the foothills sees the smoke and flees to the nearest village, babbling about fire and darkness. A patrol from Lorien, ranging far to the north, sees the glow and sends swift riders to Kara's Galadhin with news of something terrible stirring in the mountains. In Rivendell, Elrond senses a disturbance, a ripple in the fabric of the world that speaks of ancient evil awakened. But understanding comes slowly. The world is at war. Sauron's forces are on the march, besieging Gondor, harrying Rohan, pressing against every border of the free peoples. Attention is focused on those immediate threats, and the reports of fire in the distant mountains are noted but not prioritized. Perhaps it is Saruman's doing, some new weapon or ally. Perhaps it is connected to Sauron. Perhaps it is merely wildfire, tragic but not militarily significant. None yet understand that what walks free is something from a deeper darkness, a threat that predates Sauron himself. The Balrog crosses a river, and the water steams and churns. It ascends a ridge, and the grass withers in its wake. It passes near a village, close enough that the inhabitants can see it in the distance, a shape of fire moving through the night. And by morning, the village is empty, its people having fled in terror. Every path the Balrog takes leaves the land scarred, and no army stands ready to meet it. For who could stand against such a foe? The greatest warriors of the age are occupied elsewhere. Aragorn is with the Fellowship, far to the south. The armies of Gondor are marshalling to defend Minas Tirith. The Rohirrim are dealing with their own troubles, Saruman's betrayal and the weakening of their king. The elves are diminished, their numbers dwindling, their great powers fading as the age turns toward men. And in the shadows of Barad-dûr, Sauron senses something, a new fire, a familiar resonance. He reaches out with his will, probing, and for a moment, the eye turns away from the search for the ring. Here is something unexpected, something that could be useful or could be a rival. The Balrog feels that attention and rejects it. It served Morgoth, not his lesser successor. It will not bend to Sauron's will, but neither will it oppose him, not yet. The world is large, and there is room for multiple fires to burn. The Fellowship moves south, burdened by grief and uncertainty. Gandalf is lost, or so most believe. Aragorn has taken command, but the mantle sits uneasily on his shoulders. He is a ranger, accustomed to solitary wandering and small-scale battles, not the leadership of such a diverse and fractious group. Boromir chafes under his authority. The hobbits are still in shock from the terror of Moria, and Legolas and Gimli, though stalwart, look to their own peoples and priorities. The quest seems more fragile than ever, but Gandalf is not dead. In this altered history, he survived the fall from the bridge, whether through luck, skill, or the intervention of fate. He tumbled into darkness but landed not in an abyssal lake, but on a ledge, bruised and battered but alive. He spent days finding his way out of the depths, struggling through tunnels lit only by his staff's fading light, until finally he emerged, not in Dimrill Dale but somewhere far to the north, in a desolate stretch of the misty mountains where few ever travel. He descends the mountain alone, leaning heavily on his staff, each step an effort. His body aches, his power is diminished from the exertion of the bridge and the days of struggle afterward. But his mind is sharp, and as he walks, he ponders what he knows and what he fears. The Balrog did not fall. He is certain of this, though he cannot say how he knows. Perhaps it is his nature as a Maya, a kinship of sorts with the creature despite their opposing allegiances. Or perhaps it is simply logic. If the Balrog had fallen, he would have felt its passing, the extinguishing of that ancient fire. If it did not fall, then it is free. And a free Balrog is a threat beyond measure. Gandalf alters his course. The Fellowship will have to manage without him for a time. Aragorn is capable, and the hobbits are tougher than they appear. But if the Balrog is loose, then the priorities of the quest must shift, at least temporarily. The ring is a danger, yes, the ultimate danger. But what good is destroying the ring if Middle-earth has already burned? He makes for Lothlorien, knowing that Galadriel's wisdom and her mirror might provide insight into what is happening. But the journey is long, and he is one man, exhausted and alone. Meanwhile, word of the Balrog's rampage is spreading, though slowly and imperfectly. Elrond receives reports from his scouts, and his heart grows heavy. He sends messengers to Lorien, to the woodland realm, even to the distant halls of the dwarves in the Iron Hills, warning them that an ancient evil has awakened. But communication is slow, and the response is slower. Everyone is occupied with their own battles, their own desperate defenses. In Gondor, Denethor hears rumors of fire in the north and dismisses them. What are distant fires compared to the armies gathering before his gates? Sauron is the enemy, the only enemy that matters. Let the northern lands deal with their own problems. This is the great tragedy. The free peoples, already stretched thin, are unable to unite against this new threat. They are fighting on too many fronts, their attention divided, their resources strained. And so the Balrog moves unchecked, growing bolder, its path of destruction widening. The creature has no grand strategy, no master plan. It is not Sauron, who schemes and manipulates. It is a force of nature, a hurricane of fire and malice. It destroys because destruction is its nature. It kills because it was made to kill. There is no negotiation, no possibility of alliance or truce. It simply is, and where it is, nothing else can survive. Aragorn, leading the Fellowship, begins to hear whispers of the fires. Villagers they pass speak in hushed tones of flames in the mountains, of a demon walking the earth. At first, he dismisses these as exaggerations, the kind of fearful rumors that always spread in wartime. But the consistency of the reports troubles him. And when he finally reaches Lorien and speaks with Galadriel, she confirms his worst fears. "The fire of Udun walks free," she says, her voice grave. "It is beyond our power to quell. Even in the elder days, such creatures were not easily destroyed." "Then what are we to do?" Aragorn asks. "Continue your quest," she replies. "The ring must be destroyed or all is lost regardless. But know that the world you return to, if you return, may be greatly changed." This is the burden Gandalf would have carried. The knowledge that even success might not be enough, that the destruction of the ring might simply trade one apocalypse for another. And it is a burden that now falls on others, on mortals less equipped to bear it. The Fellowship moves on, but the shadow of the Balrog hangs over them. Frodo feels it, though he does not understand what he is sensing. The ring grows heavier, yes, but there is something else. A heat in the air that should not be there. A flickering at the edge of vision that might be imagination or might be the reflection of distant flames. Even the gray wizard must reckon with a fire older than the stars, a foe no spell can fully bind. When Gandalf finally reaches Lorien, he is gaunt and worn, his gray robes tattered, his staff barely glowing. Galadriel greets him with sorrow in her eyes. "You know what has escaped," she says. "It is not a question." "I do," he replies. "And I know we cannot defeat it alone. We need the armies of the West united. We need what we do not have," she interrupts gently. "Time, strength, unity, all are in short supply." "Then we must find them," Gandalf says, and though his voice is weary, there is steel in it. "Or the world will burn." But even as he speaks, he wonders if it is already too late. War has many faces. There is the clash of armies on open fields, banners flying, horns sounding, the roar of thousands of voices raised in battle cry. There is the slow siege, the grinding attrition of walls defended and supplies dwindling. There is the quick raid, the ambush in the night, the dagger in the dark. And then there is the war that the Balrog wages, a war of annihilation where there is no strategy beyond destruction, no goal beyond fire. It moves through the lands east of the Misty Mountains like a plague. Villages burn. Forests are reduced to ash. Rivers run dry or boil away. The orcs that follow in its wake are emboldened, no longer skulking in shadows but ranging openly, attacking settlements, slaughtering travelers, spreading terror. The first organized resistance comes from an unexpected quarter. The Beornings, the great warriors who live between the Misty Mountains and Mirkwood. These are no ordinary men. They are descended from Beorn himself, the Skin Changer, and they have inherited some measure of his strength and ferocity. When word reaches them of the fires spreading through their lands, they gather their warriors and march to meet the threat. They are brave. They are strong. They are doomed. The battle takes place in a valley carved by a tributary of the Anduin, a place of steep sides and narrow passages where the Beornings hope to use the terrain to their advantage. They have perhaps 200 warriors, each worth 3 ordinary men, armed with axes and spears, their eyes hard with determination. The Balrog comes with its orc host, but it does not send the orcs forward first. It walks at the front, striding down the valley like a king, and the Beornings, seeing it for the first time, falter. This is not a creature of flesh and blood. This is not something that can be flanked or outmaneuvered. This is fire given will, shadow given form. The Beornings' leader, a giant of a man named Grimbeorn, raises his axe and roars a challenge. His warriors take heart from his courage and charge. They do not reach the Balrog. Its whip lashes out, a line of flame that cuts through armor and flesh as if they were parchment. Men scream, falling in pieces, their bodies igniting even as they collapse. The Balrog advances, and where it steps, the ground itself burns. Spears shatter against its hide, axes glance off or melt before they can bite. It swings its sword, a blade of pure flame, and warriors are cut down in swathes, their screams swallowed by the roar of fire. Grimbeorn fights his way forward, impossibly, his axe wreathed in his own blood and the blood of his fallen kin. He reaches the Balrog and strikes with all his strength, aiming for the creature's leg. The axe connects. For a moment, there is resistance, and Grimbeorn's eyes widen with hope. Then the axe melts. The head drips away in molten droplets, and Grimbeorn is left holding a smoking haft. The Balrog looks down at him, and there is something almost like curiosity in its gaze. Then it kills him. Quickly, almost mercifully. A single blow and Grimbeorn falls, the greatest warrior of his people reduced to ash before his body hits the ground. The remaining Beornings break. They flee, those who can, scattering into the hills. The orcs pursue, howling with glee, and the valley becomes a slaughterhouse. By nightfall, there are no survivors. The tributary runs red, then black as ash mixes with blood. The Balrog stands amid the carnage, its flames burning brighter, as if fed by the lives it has taken. This is what it means for the Balrog to be free. Not merely that it exists, but that it is effective, that no conventional force can stand against it. That even the brave, the strong, the desperate all fall before its advance. Word of the Beornings' destruction spreads, and with it, a new kind of fear. This is not Sauron's army, which can be met and fought and perhaps defeated with sufficient courage and strength. This is something older, something beyond tactics or strategy. In Mirkwood, Thranduil withdraws his people deeper into the forest, fortifying the ancient stronghold and refusing to send aid beyond his borders. In Erebor, the dwarves close their gates and prepare for siege, knowing that if the Balrog turns toward the lonely mountain, they may share the fate of Khazad-dûm. In Lorien, the elves strengthen their defenses, and Galadriel spends long hours gazing into her mirror, seeking guidance that does not come. The ground trembles beneath its fury, and even the bravest hearts falter before a shadow of living flame. Gandalf, reunited now with fragments of the scattered resistance, begins to form a plan. He cannot face the Balrog alone. He knows this from bitter experience. But perhaps, with allies, with preparation, with the right battlefield and the right moment, it could be contained. Not destroyed, perhaps, but driven back into the depths, sealed away as it was before. But such a battle would require coordination, resources, and time, all of which are in desperately short supply. And even if they succeed, the cost would be staggering. How many must die to bind a single creature? How many cities must burn before the free peoples can muster the force necessary? And always, beneath these considerations, the terrible question, is it even possible? Or is the Balrog truly unstoppable, a force that will burn until there is nothing left to burn? Gandalf does not know. And that uncertainty, more than any wound or weariness, weighs upon him as he watches the distant glow of fires that should not be. In the histories we know, the War of the Ring was costly. Thousands died on the Pelennor fields. Osgiliath fell and was retaken at terrible price. Entire villages were burned, forests destroyed, and even in victory, the scars would take generations to heal. But in this altered timeline, the costs multiply. For the free peoples are not fighting one war but two, and their resources, already stretched thin, are now torn between opposing threats. Rohan, which should be marching to Gondor's aid, finds its western borders aflame. The Balrog has turned south, its path bringing it toward the Gap of Rohan, and the scouts who ride back with reports speak of a terror that no army can withstand. Theoden, newly freed from Saruman's influence, faces an impossible choice: aid Gondor as honor demands, or defend his own people from annihilation. He chooses his people. It is not cowardice, but practicality. A king's first duty is to his realm. But the consequence is that Gondor receives no aid from the Rohirrim, and Minas Tirith must face Sauron's assault alone. In Gondor, Denethor receives word of Rohan's decision with bitter resignation. He has already seen Faramir's retreat from Osgiliath, already felt the net closing around his city. And now this. He retreats into madness faster than in the original timeline, his despair compounded by the knowledge that help will not come. The siege of Minas Tirith begins, and it is worse than history records. Without the Rohirrim, the city's defenders are overwhelmed. The walls are breached on the second day, not the third. Orcs pour into the lower levels, and though Gondor's soldiers fight valiantly, they are pushed back, level by level, toward the citadel. And far to the north, the Balrog marches on. The creature has no interest in Sauron's war. It does not care whether Gondor stands or falls, whether the ring is found or destroyed. But its path takes it through Rohan, and the Rohirrim, brave but unprepared, attempt to stop it. Yomer leads the defense, having taken command of Rohan's military in Theoden's absence. He gathers every rider he can, thousands of the finest cavalry in Middle-earth, and meets the Balrog on the plains of Rohan where speed and maneuverability should give his forces the advantage. It does not. The Rohirrim charge, a thunder of hooves and a forest of spears, and they are magnificent. But the Balrog does not flee, does not even slow. It stands its ground, and as the riders close, it unleashes fire. Not a gout or a blast, but a wave, a wall of flame that rolls across the plain like a tsunami. Horses scream, riders are engulfed, and the charge breaks apart in chaos. Those who survive wheel away, trying to regroup, but the orcs are upon them, and the battle devolves into a desperate melee. Eomer fights like a man possessed, his sword rising and falling, each stroke felling an enemy. But he cannot reach the Balrog. Every time he tries, the heat drives him back, his horse rearing in terror, his armor growing too hot to touch. And then the Balrog notices him. It turns, its burning gaze fixing on the rider who has killed so many of its servants, and it strides forward. Eomer does not flee. He charges alone, his horse's hooves pounding the scorched earth, his sword raised for a final, desperate strike. He never reaches the creature. The whip lashes out, wraps around his horse's neck, and pulls. The horse goes down, and Eomer is thrown, landing hard, his armor ringing against stone. He struggles to rise, but the Balrog is already there, looming over him like a mountain of fire. In another timeline, Eomer would survive to become king of Rohan, to ride with Aragorn to the Black Gate to see the dawn of a new age. In this one, he dies on the plains of his homeland, burned to ash before he can even draw breath to scream. His death breaks the Rohirrim. They flee, scattering in all directions, and the Balrog lets them go. It has no interest in pursuit. It moves on, ever south, and behind it, the plains of Rohan burn. Theoden receives word of his nephew's death and nearly collapses. Grief and guilt war within him, grief for Eomer, guilt for the decision that sent him to that battle. But he is a king, and he cannot afford to break. He orders the evacuation of Edoras, sending the women and children to the mountains, the stronghold of Helm's Deep. He will make a stand there, if nowhere else. But even as he prepares, he knows it may not be enough. Helm's Deep is a fortress, yes, but it was designed to hold against conventional armies. What defense can stone walls offer against a creature that melts iron with a touch? In Gondor, the siege grinds on. Gandalf arrives, returned from his journey, and his presence heartens the defenders. But even he cannot turn the tide alone. He stands on the walls, his staff blazing with light, casting down orcs and trolls. But for every enemy he defeats, 10 more take their place. Faramir, leading a desperate sortie, is gravely wounded, and Denethor's madness deepens. He orders the pyre prepared, intending to burn himself and his son, and it takes all of Gandalf's will and Pippin's bravery to prevent the tragedy. And through it all, the knowledge weighs on everyone. Even if they survive this siege, even if Gondor holds, there is another threat, perhaps even greater, burning its way through the north. Even the valor of kings may crumble when confronted by fire that remembers the first wars of the world. The free peoples are not broken, not yet. But they are bending, strained to the point of snapping. Heroes are falling, cities are threatened, and the hope that sustained them, the belief that if they could just endure, if they could just hold on a little longer, victory might be possible, is beginning to fade. In Lorien, Galadriel feels the weight of ages pressing down. She is one of the oldest beings in Middle-earth, and she has seen much sorrow. But this, the simultaneous assault of Sauron's forces and the Balrog's rampage, threatens to overwhelm even her resilience. She gazes into her mirror one final time, seeking some glimpse of hope, some thread of possibility that might be grasped. The water shows her fire. Fire and shadow, stretching across the world, consuming everything. And in the heart of the flames, 2 eyes, one the eye of Sauron, red and lidless, and the other the Balrog's gaze, equally pitiless, equally absolute. She steps back from the mirror, her face pale. "The world ends in fire," she whispers, "and I see no water that can quench it." Frodo Baggins does not know about the Balrog. Not directly, not clearly. He knows only that something terrible is happening to the north, that the world seems darker than it should, that even the sun's light feels wan and unconvincing. But the ring knows. It is a thing of malice and will, forged by Sauron in the fires of Mount Doom, and it is attuned to power in all its forms. It senses the Balrog, recognizes it as a creature of the same essential nature. Fire and domination will imposed on the world through force, and it is drawn to that power even as it is drawn to Sauron. Frodo feels this as a weight, a pulling sensation that tugs him not just toward Mordor but also northward, toward the flames. It confuses him, makes his path seem uncertain. Sam notices his hesitation but does not understand it. "What's wrong, Mr. Frodo?" he asks as they pause on a hillside, looking out over the land. "I don't know," Frodo replies honestly. "It's as if there are two paths and I can't tell which is the right one." This is the ring's doing, its subtle corruption working on his mind. It whispers that perhaps the quest should be abandoned, that perhaps instead of destroying the ring, Frodo should seek out this other power, ally with it, use it. Together they could overthrow Sauron, could reshape the world. But Frodo has grown stronger through his journey. He recognizes the whisper for what it is and resists. "No," he says aloud, and Sam looks at him with concern. "We go to Mordor. That is the only path." He continues forward, but the weight remains, and with each day it grows heavier. Gollum, traveling with them, also senses the Balrog, though he does not understand what he is sensing. He becomes more agitated, more unpredictable, torn between his desire for the ring and his instinctive fear of the fire he dimly perceives in the distance. The journey grows harder. The lands they travel through are more desolate, as if the Balrog's presence in the world has cast a shadow over everything. Villages they pass are empty, the inhabitants having fled or simply vanished. The few travelers they encounter are desperate, hollow-eyed, speaking in whispers of fire and doom. And always, the ring grows heavier. Frodo stumbles more often, needs Sam's help to rise. He sleeps fitfully, and his dreams are full of flames. Aragorn, who has taken a northern route with the remainder of the Fellowship, tries to draw the Balrog's attention away from Frodo's path. He and Legolas and Gimli raid orc camps, strike at the creature's supply lines, such as they are, and generally make themselves as visible and troublesome as possible. It works to a degree. The Balrog turns toward them, sensing the challenge, but it is not distracted for long. It is too single-minded, too focused on its path of destruction, to be diverted by a few warriors, no matter how skilled. The confrontation comes in a narrow pass, a place of stone and shadow where Aragorn hopes the terrain will favor them. He stands with Legolas and Gimli, 3 against a demon of the First Age, and even they, who have faced trolls and orcs and the horrors of Moria, feel fear. The Balrog approaches, and Aragorn draws Anduril, the reforged blade of Narsil, the sword that cut the ring from Sauron's hand. It blazes with light, a counter to the Balrog's flame. For Gondor! Aragorn shouts and charges. The battle is brief and brutal. Legolas fires arrow after arrow, each one true, but they burn away before reaching the Balrog's hide. Gimli swings his axe, and though it is dwarf-forged and strong, it melts on contact with the creature's skin. Aragorn's sword fares better. Anduril was made in elder days and carries power that even a Balrog must respect. But one sword cannot defeat such a foe. The Balrog's whip lashes out, and Gimli is struck, sent flying against the rocks. He does not rise. Legolas leaps aside, loosing one final arrow at the creature's eyes before retreating into the shadows. And Aragorn, his sword raised, faces the Balrog alone for 3 heartbeats. Then Gandalf arrives. He comes with light and thunder, his staff blazing, his voice raised in words of power that echo off the stone. "Flame of Udun, your time is ended. Back to the shadow." The Balrog turns to face him, recognizing its ancient kin. For a moment, they stand poised, two Maiar on opposite sides of a conflict older than the world. Then they clash. Aragorn drags Gimli to safety, and he and Legolas watch from a distance as wizard and demon battle. It is not a contest of swords or whips, though those are used. It is a battle of wills, of power expressed in flame and light, of words that shake the foundations of the earth. The pass explodes. Stone shatters, the sky darkens, and when the dust settles, both combatants are gone. The Balrog has been driven back, wounded perhaps, but not destroyed. And Gandalf lies among the rubble, his staff broken, his body still. Aragorn rushes to his side, and the wizard's eyes flicker open. "Go," Gandalf whispers. "Protect the ring-bearer. I have bought you time, use it." And then he is gone, truly gone this time, his spirit departing for the halls beyond the world. The fate of the ring now hangs in a world where flame and shadow roam unchecked. Frodo in the south feels a sudden lightness, as if a weight has been lifted. He does not know that Gandalf has fallen, but he senses that something has changed. The path ahead seems clearer, though no less difficult. He continues toward Mordor, toward the fires of Mount Doom. But behind him, the world burns with another fire entirely. In the end, there is no clean resolution. No final battle where good triumphs over evil. No moment of eucatastrophe where all seems lost, and then miraculously, salvation arrives. Instead, there is fire. Fire that burns across continents, that consumes forests and cities, that leaves the land blackened and dead. And in the heart of that fire, the Balrog walks, eternal and unstoppable. Frodo reaches Mount Doom. Against all odds, despite the weight of the ring and the terrors of the journey, he and Sam climb the slopes of Orodruin and stand at the edge of the Samath Nor. Gollum attacks, desperate and mad, and in the struggle, the ring is destroyed, not by choice, but by accident, falling into the fires as Gollum tumbles after it. Sauron is defeated. The eye closes. The towers of Barad-dûr collapse. The armies of Mordor, leaderless and confused, break and flee. It is a victory, but it is a hollow one. For even as Sauron falls, the Balrog endures. It has no master, no allegiance to the Dark Lord. It existed before Sauron and will exist after. And with the collapse of Mordor, with the free peoples exhausted and their armies shattered, there is no force left that can oppose it. The creature moves west. It has burned through Rohan, reduced Helm's Deep to rubble, scattered the Rohirrim. It has turned south, its path bringing it toward Gondor. Minas Tirith, already besieged and battered, is in no condition to withstand another assault, especially not from a foe like this. Aragorn, crowned now as King Elessar, faces the greatest challenge of his reign before it has truly begun. His city is in ruins, his people are exhausted, and an unstoppable force of destruction is approaching. He stands on the walls of Minas Tirith, looking north, and sees the glow of flames on the horizon. "What can we do?" Faramir asks, standing beside him. The younger man has recovered from his wounds but still bears the scars, both physical and mental. "We endure," Aragorn replies, "as we have always endured. And if enduring is not enough?" Aragorn has no answer. In Lorien, Galadriel makes her decision. She has resisted the temptation of power for thousands of years, refused the ring when it was offered, held true to her purpose even as the world darkened. But now, faced with annihilation, she draws on the full extent of her strength. She calls upon the light of the trees, the ancient power that she remembers from Valinor. She weaves spells of protection around her realm, turning the golden wood into a fortress of light and shadow, a place where even the Balrog cannot enter. But it is a defensive measure, not a solution. Lorien may survive, but the rest of Middle-earth will burn. Radagast the Brown, who has remained largely apart from the wars of the age, emerges from Roscoble with the beasts of the wild lands following him. He attempts to turn the Balrog aside through the sheer force of nature, floods, landslides, storms, but fire cares nothing for water or wind. The natural world cannot contain what was never part of it. The Ents march from Fangorn, roused by Treebeard's anger and sorrow. They are ancient and strong, and they remember the wars of the elder days. But even they cannot withstand the Balrog's flames. They burn, one by one, their wood crackling and collapsing, their voices crying out in agony before falling silent. Treebeard himself, the eldest of them, stands before the Balrog and speaks in the language of trees, a tongue so old that even the creature of fire pauses to listen. "You were not always this," Treebeard says, his voice like the groan of roots deep in the earth. "You were a spirit of light once, a servant of the flame that warms and shapes. How have you fallen so far?" The Balrog does not answer in words, but its whip cracks and Treebeard burns. One by one, the defenses fail. The peoples of Middle-earth retreat, seeking shelter in the mountains, in hidden valleys, in any place that might offer protection. But there is no safety, not truly. The Balrog's path is erratic, unpredictable. It might turn aside from one village only to destroy the next. It might spare a forest only to burn a city. There is no pattern, no logic, only fire. And so the age turns toward an ending that Tolkien never imagined. An ending without hope, without redemption, where the great sacrifices and heroic deeds of the War of the Ring are rendered meaningless by a single, unchained terror. Aragorn, in his throne room, surrounded by counselors who have no counsel to offer, finally makes a decision. He will ride out to meet the Balrog. Not to defeat it, he knows that is impossible, but to buy time. To draw it away from Mina's Tirith, to lead it on a chase that will allow others to escape. It is a suicide mission, and everyone knows it. But he is the king, and this is his duty. He takes Anduril, the Flame of the West, and he rides north with a small company of his best knights. They do not expect to return. They meet the Balrog on the plains before the White Mountains, where the grass is already ash and the sky is choked with smoke. Aragorn dismounts and walks forward alone, his sword gleaming in his hand. "I am Aragorn, son of Arathorn, heir of Isildur, king of Gondor," he declares, "and I will not let you pass." The Balrog regards him, and for a moment, there is something almost like amusement in its gaze. This mortal, this tiny, brief spark of life, thinks he can stand against the fire that has burned since the world's beginning. Aragorn charges. He fights with all the skill of his lineage, all the strength of Númenor, all the will of a man who knows he is about to die but refuses to yield. Anduril bites into the Balrog's hide, and for the first time in this long rampage, the creature flinches, feels pain. But pain is not defeat. The Balrog's whip wraps around Aragorn's sword, wrenches it from his grip. The king stumbles, falls to one knee, and looks up into the face of his death. And then, impossibly, there is light. Not from the sun, which has long been hidden behind smoke and ash. Not from Aragorn's sword, which lies shattered on the ground. But from the west, A light so pure, so brilliant, that even the Balrog recoils. A ship has come to the Grey Havens, and from it steps a figure clad in white, radiant and terrible. Gandalf, returned from death, sent back by powers beyond the world to finish what he started. But he is not alone. With him are others, Maiar who have remained hidden, elves from Valinor who have answered the call for aid, and even, perhaps, a herald of the Valor themselves. The final battle begins, not on the plains of Gondor, but in the spaces between the world, where the Balrog is torn from the physical plane and cast back into the void from which Morgoth first drew it. When it is over, when the light fades and the smoke begins to clear, Aragorn lies on the scorched earth, alive but barely. Gandalf kneels beside him. "It is finished," the wizard says. But Aragorn looks out at the devastation, the burned forests, the ruined cities, the countless dead, and shakes his head. "No," he whispers. "It has only just begun." For Middle-earth is scarred beyond recognition. The lands that burned will take centuries to heal, if they ever do. The peoples who survived are scattered, broken, their civilizations shattered. And even though the Balrog is gone, even though Sauron is defeated, the age of men dawns over a world reduced to ash. And so the Balrog walks, eternal flame in a land unprepared, reminding us that even the smallest hinge of fate can swing the world into shadow. In the years that follow, the survivors tell stories. Stories of the fire, of the heroes who stood against it, of the sacrifices made in vain and in hope. They rebuild slowly, painfully, and they vow never to forget. But the scars remain, in the blackened earth, in the empty halls, in the memories of those who lived through the terror and can never quite believe it is over. And in the deep places of the world, in the roots of mountains and the foundations of stone, there are still whispers. Whispers of fire that cannot be quenched, of shadows that endure, of creatures that sleep but do not die. For the world is old and it remembers. And what has happened once can happen again. The Argonath still stand, silent witnesses. Ammon Hen still waits. And somewhere in darkness that no light has pierced, another fire may be dreaming, patient and terrible, waiting for the day when it too might rise. Dear listener, this story ends, but many await. Subscribe so no tale escapes you.